Hey guys, how to invest $5 million. We're talking about it today, right now. Stay tuned. Today, we're talking about that situation that you're in when you got $5 million and you don't know what to do, how to invest it, how to generate the income, how to be tax efficient, how to plan for the next generations. Let's address all of those. I'm Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager here, Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management, and the Tatro Wealth Advisor Group. If you'd like to chat about this or anything else on your mind, please take a sec. Go to www.speaktorob.com. Love to book a no obligation consultation with you. While we're here, while you're on YouTube or Facebook, take a sec to subscribe, like, share our stuff. We'd love to hear from you. If you do have comments, put them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on how to invest $5 million. So we do this for a living. I work with a lot of people who have $5 million. And what I find is for them, typically there's more stress about the planning around the $5 million than the actual investments of the $5 million. So let's start from scratch. You got your $5 million. How did you get it? Did you sell a business? Did you inherit it? Did you just save it through like really diligent RSP and tax-free savings? And you've earned a nice income and you've been able to put aside $5 million? If yes, great. If you've inherited it or you won the lottery, how are those a little different? So now they're all different. But let's assume for the record today that you got $5 million of non-registered money, mostly non-registered money. Some of that is an RSP and you're retired, all right? And you want to draw down on that as income. So how are we going to build that? How are you going to start? Well, first of all, we want to budget. We want to make a plan for what you're going to need. Are you going to need 100 grand a year, 50 grand, 200 grand? Whatever that number is, we need to calculate your budgeting. And then we need to go back and say, all right, how are we going to generate that income for this client? Because in all reality, if you got $5 million, you're probably not going to get the problem of making sure you have enough to retire. With $5 million, you're probably in the rare tranche of individuals in this country that are not planning for their lifetime, that are planning for the next lifetime. They're planning for their kids. They're planning for their grandkids, their favorite charities. They're planning, maybe they want to set up an endowment fund. Maybe they have beliefs where they want to actually, make a difference, or maybe they want to get their name on a building or something. So those are the types of questions that we're looking at now, because generating income on $5 million, even if we go extremely conservative and we generate 5% income annually, on $5 million, you're going to get $250,000. If you do a little bit of income splitting, you're going to get $180,000 or $190,000 after tax, depending on your situation. That's $15,000 plus per month of income. And for most people, that's plenty to live off of in retirement, especially if you factor in CPP and OAS and any other income you might have if you do have $5 million of income, of actual physical assets or liquid assets. So the problem now becomes more, how are we going to plan for everything else that's happening? Now, let's start with the income. Okay, so let's assume that the assets are now held in your corporation. Okay, so if you sold a corporation, you sold a business, you got $5 million in your corp. Well, now we want to make sure that we can optimally remove that income from your corporation in the most tax efficient manner possible. And we want to do that over the period of time. So we're going to build what's called a plan. We're going to build a wealth plan to take a look at how we're going to draw down that income from your corporation the most tax efficiently possible. That might include just aggressive dividend paying, aggressive income paying. It might include life insurance strategies. It might include, there are some tax loopholes where you can do some remarkable tax deferred removal of income from a corporation through an insurance policy. And typically those are only for extreme high net worth individuals who do have a lot of assets in their corp. So we're going to make a plan for how to remove those assets from the corp. But for now, we're going to start building income generating investments. Now you're in a corporation. So that means the passive assets that you have inside your corporation are taxed at the highest tax rate. The highest tax rate. So for income, 50% give or take. For dividends, for capital gains, we're talking about in the high 20s. So you have to be extremely careful, high 20s, maybe 30s, depending on your personal situation. You have to be extremely careful as to how you're going to build the portfolio that is now generating income. You can't just go and buy a whole bunch of bonds and a whole bunch of stocks and hope for the best. And I would say you can't just go out and buy tennis balls because they have a high rate of return, right? That might not necessarily be the best idea. What you want to do is you want to factor in tax. So how are you going to do this? You're going to build a portfolio, investment portfolio that generates ROC, return of capital investments. You're going to have a portfolio that's going to generate Canadian eligible dividend. You're going to have a portfolio that's going to try to minimize the income, the taxable income being generated in the portfolio. You're going to try to defer some capital gains as best we can. And those are all strategies that we would use inside a corp. Now, if it's personal assets, inside the RSP, you don't have to worry about it. Obviously, the entire amount is growing tax-free inside your RSP and inside your TFSA. We don't have to think about tax, right? It's not even on top of mind. We do have to think about the eventual tax burden that's going to happen at some point down the line when you're drawing down on that RSP. And we're going to want to make a plan, a wealth plan for how to optimize the drawdown of that RSP. But we don't have to worry today about the income being generated inside the RSP. Now, if you own the assets in a joint, perhaps non-registered account with your spouse, or in a personal non-registered account, so you either own the assets in your corp, you either own them in your registered accounts, or you own them in a non-registered account. You've already paid out the money. You've either inherited, maybe you've won some sort of lottery. Maybe you've sold the business and you've paid yourself out personally. Maybe you repaid a shareholder loan to yourself, or you've sold some farmland that you own personally. In all those situations, you own those assets personally. You personally own the assets. So now your personal tax rate needs to be factored in. How much am I going to personally generate annually from these non-registered accounts? Can I income split that? And is there a way to minimize that income? Because not every dollar of income is the same personally. A dollar of interest is not the same as a dollar of dividend, is not the same as a dollar of capital gain, and it's definitely not as efficient as a return of capital, which we talked about in the corporate structure. All right, we're building this portfolio. We know we got to be tax efficient. We know how we got to structure it. We know that we likely, depending on your risk tolerance, we don't just want to have stocks and bonds in there. We definitely want to take a look at having some alternative asset classes. If you're $5 million, you're in the 0.1% of the individuals in the country, even better than that. And you need to factor in portfolio management like a pension. This money is going to be used for this generation. It's likely going to be used for the next generation. Therefore, we need to have a longer view of these funds. Private real estate, private debt, private equity, farmland, music royalties, all of these ideas are stuff that you should be considering for long-term investments. If we can minimize the volatility, increase the returns, and diversify your holdings, that's what endowment funds do. That's what pension funds do. They think not 5 years, they think 50 years, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I would suggest you should be thinking of. All right, so now we've built a portfolio, roughly how you want to have it. We've talked about asset allocation. We've talked about the taxability of things. The last piece of all of this is the decisions with respect to your wealth and how it's going to be structured over the course of your lifetime and after that. Do we need a family trust? Is it important for you to protect the lineage of your money? In other words, you pass away, your kids inherit the money, they get married, they commingle the assets, they pass away. The spouse now owns the assets. The spouse remarries to a third party, and now all the assets are in that person's name. Is that something you want? Is that something you've thought of? Do you care, right? So family trusts are potentially a big thing. Testamentary trusts, family foundations. Are you charitable? Do you want to give money? I know I am. My parents have a family foundation. I have a family foundation. I believe in giving money. I believe there's optimal ways to give money, and I believe we all owe it to give money where we can. Time or money, whatever it is. My grandparents used to tell me, if you can't give money, you give time. So, is that part of what you want to do? If yes, how do we structure that? Well, we have strategies built around moving assets in that have a reduced ACB. Over time, it's going to erode your ACB. You get the cash, you donate those in kind to your foundation, you get the full tax credit upfront, and over time, your family foundation can donate. Maybe that makes sense for you if you do have charitable aspirations. If not, how are we going to manage the transition of your wealth to the next generation? We just want to make sure we're optimizing that. We're taking a look at the most tax efficient way to do that, and we want to build a plan for you because this is not easy. You've done well in your life. You've accumulated this wealth. You've taken care of business. Now it's time for you to rely on the experts to make absolutely sure that the best protection is in place for your wealth for this generation and for the next. If you're not sure about this or anything else, please go to www.speaktorob.com. I'd love to book a no obligation consultation to chat about this or anything else that's on your mind. Take a sec, guys, before we end to subscribe. Press the red button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share, tell us your comments. I'd love to hear from you. And by all means, thank you for taking the time today. I'm Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you real soon.